Fire Explorer.
Okay.
We actually painted the fire hydrants. Those $500 to our group, but they supplied the paint, and we went out as a group, us and another church youth group went out painting fire hydrants. That was kind of cost savings.
I'm not ready for
See that, and but then also, if we already have the equipment in place, an air compressor, we need a plaster, and, you take it down.
How we doing, Ken?
Oh,
Meet you. Hello. Did you have any questions?
No, I didn't. I was gonna. I left the copy out in my car. Hello, Andrew. Come up, make more copies tomorrow, and start handing them out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm just gonna leave it just like that. I ain't gonna change nothing. I'm just gonna, like I said, come in, make some copies, and start handing them out.
Good, and you?
All right. So did you?
excellent, yeah. It's always nice to put a face with it.
Yeah.
Just say the thing, 1 o'clock to when Friday?
He has to be the wrong way.
Okay.
I was trying to.
Can I have my regular cocktail?
Sometimes you'll try.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes you know something has to be done, and then by general consensus, it's all like it's gonna get passed. He still has to go. Up there.
Okay, where are we going? Hi, Peter.
Good evening.
How you doing, Ken?
All right. How are you, sir?
And the elderly people.
Trying to recover.
Well, was he gonna move him back
Adam,
by?
sure, that must be trouble tonight.
So we,
Well,
yeah. Well. Not connected? Oh boy. Go easy. That's an extra. You're on.
that means you're, you know, look good about it rather than just checking the box. Gets him up with a tree.
It's more of a fun job. No, mine is.
Good one last night, Chief. That's fine.
Hey, Mike, what's up, my man? How are you?
Okay.
Well, you know, one way to do it. Well, yeah, I mean, that way you get all, whatever's been in there, you get a good prime coat, then you have a finish coat. And then you don't use a product where it'll
No bus.
up to the road. Road salt. Welcome to Look On with me. I've got a lot of, emotional and mental. I gotta get back to my. Before I get back.
Yeah, take care of yourself.
Well, at least I wrote a list of things and, you know, today's only my 20th day here.
I start breaking down.
So much.
I might walk away.
I do this right.
Nothing, I just go.
Sure. Randy.
Well, hey,
I can turn mine in.
I was trying to remember your name, please.
You're gonna come up with me when I get my license.
No, really.
oh, yeah, no.
Tom is a good friend. Tom is
All right.
a good friend of mine.
Okay.
I think he came in to visit the other day and I saw him. I put my crying for so many years. He's such a good friend. Oh, yeah. He got a little comfort. He had some personal
Just so you know, because I didn't get a chance to call you on that, and my assumption is you guys.
What's that? That's not gonna be a problem. I've never met him.
Yeah, my understanding was you factored that into the equation.
Yep.
And
Yeah, that
made your recommendation accordingly. So, okay. Yeah. I believe so, but in case I was missing something.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, good evening. Dan, would you want to give us an invocation?
Certainly will. Thank you, Mayor Merrill. I'm Dan Mysick, Ignite Church. It's pray together. I just thank you, Father, that there is a shift in this city. And even though there is shifting that is happening, I thank you that there is momentum to carry things through. I thank you, Father, that there is vitality in this city. I thank you that there is new life, that there is hope in this city. And I declare finances are opening up through the city. I just thank you that every heart is turning to you. I just declare that those who have been on a path who have not understood who you are, God, that they are opening their hearts and that they are having a shift and that they will see a momentum. And God, I just thank you for this council. I honor this council. I honor these officials who have a great work to do. And Father, I just thank you that you bless them, you bless their families, you give them safety. And in all these things, that your name is glorified. It's in Jesus I pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Well, now that it's 6 o'clock, we'll call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderpersons Clem,
Here?
McClanathan,
Here.
Ross,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
Busker,
Here.
Brashaw,
Here.
Keister,
Here.
Chesney.
Here.
Okay, Alderman Clem, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, first on the list here is the approval of the agenda. Is there such a motion?
So move.
Motion made by Alderman Keister, seconded by
Second it.
Alderman Ross. All those in favor of the approval of the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Next is the approval of the minutes from September 18th, 2017. Is there such a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Motion made by Alderperson Brashaw, seconded by
Second.
Alderman Smith. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. And public comments.
There are none signed in, but I have an email to read from Danielle Rogers regarding agenda item number 7, alcoholic liquor sales. Danielle Rogers writes, I am the executive director of Freeport Downtown Development Foundation, and it's been a privilege to lead some of the city's best events. Overall, we attract hundreds of thousands of dollars every year in economic impact to the city that otherwise wouldn't exist. Events also serve as a good funding source for our not-for-profits so that we can promote and market downtown Freeport locally and regionally. By expanding our opportunity to host more quality, well-run events, you're also expanding the opportunity for the city to thrive. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. And move on to item number 4 is the consent agenda, which is routine in nature, unless there's a council member that would like to have something removed, and we can discuss that first after the approval. Seeing none, we have the approval to receive and place on file the City of Freeport Police Department Report of Activities, August 2017, the minutes of the public hearing, August 29, 2017, of the Gladewood and Demeter Bridge, the 2018 City Holiday Schedule, the 2018 City Council Calendar of Meetings, the 2018 Committee of the Whole Calendar of Meetings. We have the approval of the water and sewer bills payable, $363,305.65. The approval of finance bills payable in the total of $869,379.15, and the approval of payroll for pay period ending September 16th, 2017, in the total of $479,764.51. Is there a motion for the approval?
So move.
Approval made by Alderman Keister, seconded by
Seconded.
Alderman Ross. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the consent agenda approval?
Clem,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Brashaw,
Aye.
Keister,
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Approved 8-0.
Okay, and next we have the financial reports for 2017-18 for the period ending August 31st, 2017, including the general fund highlights and the library highlights. Is there any discussion on these reports?
Mayor,
Alderman McClanathan.
thank you. Director, just briefly, I appreciate the reports. And the only question I have is, you talk about the state impact and some of the changes and how that's going to affect us as well as some of the other local entities, and particularly the other one highlighted there. Have we had some discussion yet, well, particularly with the library, as to how these state decisions are impacting us?
I've had discussions with them, and with Carol, with it going forward, and they understand the shortfalls here. They're also concerned about the overall stress that that's going to be placing on the library, because they were already short in their amount of money.
Discussions are ongoing.
Yeah, discussions are ongoing.
Yep. No, I appreciate it.
Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
I'd just like to thank Randy for the excellent proposal. First time out of the box here, you and I talked it. I know you'd have more stuff coming up, but appreciate the detail and thank you for it.
Is there a motion to receive and place on file these financial reports?
So move. Second.
Was that Keister? And seconded by Clem. All those in favor of placing the reports on file signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passed. Item number 6 is the appointments of boards and commissions, and we will do this as one unless someone would like to have them separated out. Madam Clerk, could you please read this into the record?
Acceptance of an appointment of Randy Bucas, Director of Finance, to the Airport Commission, effective immediately through November 30th, 2020. Acceptance of an appointment of Nancy McDonald, Director of Economic and Community Development, to the Airport Commission, effective immediately through November 30th, 2020. Acceptance of an appointment of Mike Mead to the Stevenson County Convention and Visitors Bureau, effective immediately through December 31st, 2017.
Is there such a motion for approval?
So moved.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the acceptance of these appointments?
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney. Pass. I'm so sorry. Passes 8-0.
Okay, and next on the agenda is the first reading of ordinance 2017-70. Madam Clerk, could you please read this into the record?
Draft of an ordinance amending Part 8, Business Regulations and Taxation, Title 2, Business Regulations, Chapter 806, Alcoholic Liquor Sales, Section 806.03K of the Codified Ordinances.
Okay, well, this comes to the council as a recommendation by the Liquor Commission. There is an increase of the temporary licenses going from 5 to 10 is their recommendation. And this is just a temporary measure as a part of a larger rewrite that the Liquor Commission is working on for the liquor codes. This is needed prior to the rewrite because of the accommodations for those T1 and T2 where situations simply we are not covered in our existing codes. So as a result, we have some licensees who are running out of the availability of the T1 and the T2 through absolutely no fault of their own. FDDF, which you heard the clerk read into the record, they have exhausted their T1, and the T2 is simply a disconnect in the ordinance with our parklets. And so whether a larger number of T1 and T2 may or may not be a part of this rewrite, as of right now, it is the least complicated way to address the problem while we are restructuring those codes. So is there any questions concerning this ordinance?
Mayor Miller?
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you. Daniel Rogers addressed this, and I have no fault with this at all, but do you think that 10 will be adequate to cover those additional permits that are needed?
Well, right now it is simply because we're close to the end of the year, and it will get that parklet through what they need because it's only available until the 1st of November, so, as of right now. But the Liquor Commission is working on the rewrites so that it might change yet.
And one follow-up, please.
Yes.
When they do apply for these temporary permits, do they have to pay a fee to the city of Freeport?
Yes, the nonprofits pay a different fee than do you know what they are, Roxanne? I think it's $25.
Mayor,
Madam-
75 for all applicants.
No difference between either one?
No, you are right. It is 25 for nonprofits. I'm sorry, 25 and 75.
Mayor?
Alderman Bradshaw.
The only reason I ask those questions, I would do want the public to be aware that people actually have to fill out an application and pay a fee. So it is then approved by the Liquor Commission. So it's not like we're just letting everybody have a temporary permit.
Correct.
And because of that, and because of the way it is worded, I am in full support of this, and I would like to move it forward. So I'd like to make that motion, please.
Mayor?
Okay, we have a motion made by Alderman Bradshaw, seconded by Alderman Keister to move this forward. Alderman Chesney.
Is a request from the commission to suspend the rules?
Yes, actually it is, because it's very time sensitive in order for the parklets to be able to continue this month.
Madam
Motion
Mayor,
is, go ahead, Tom.
Before we do that, could we have discussion on it?
Yes.
Please? No, I mean, it's a pro thing for it. I think, just so there's no misunderstanding with the public, when we talk about more licenses and more things, it's not a matter of issuing more licenses. The number of licenses remain the same. The number of events is what changed for the people downtown or for special events. So please, as you look at it, it's not an abundance, like somebody mentioned, of handing out license. It's providing additional venues that people can do. So anything to increase business, whether it be in the downtown area or in the outlying areas.
Yeah, you're correct. It's temporary for events is the main focus. Any further discussion on this ordinance?
Mayor,
Alderman Chesney.
motion to suspend the rules?
Second.
We have a motion to suspend the rules made by Alderman Chesney and seconded by Alderman Busker. And suspension of the rules is non-debatable and must pass by a 2/3 majority. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the suspension of the rules only?
Clem,
Aye.
Aye.
McClanathan, Ross,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Brashaw,
Aye.
Keister,
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Thank you. So now before you is the final passage of ordinance 2017-70. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the passage of ordinance 2017-70?
Clem,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Brashaw,
Aye.
Keister,
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the first reading of ordinance 2017-71. Madam Clerk, could you please read this into the record?
An ordinance of the City of Freeport approving and authorizing the city to enter into a master lease agreement, maintenance agreement, and related documents thereto with Enterprise.
Manager Crowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is, we have come to an agreement with Enterprise to move forward with the leasing of the agreements. The initial, I had posted the comments that I'd sent to you was that it's going to cost us 102. It's actually the come back with the quotes is a 96,860 is the cost. It's a little bit low, and that's including the maintenance, it's the full replacement of 17 vehicles, both with water, sewer, and community development. This is the first phase, and our budgeted amount for this was $160,000 for this year. So that's under that budgeted amount, and as we go forward, it will stay below that. We believe that this is the best way to go forward, make sure that our vehicles are up to date. We get the benefits of more gas efficient and also a full maintenance program. The the leasing of these vehicles, each one of the local dealerships gets a credit of $300 per vehicle, and the local enterprise dealer also gets credit. Currently, our maintenance contract, we spend about $58,000 per year for maintenance, and once we get these, all the vehicles replaced, our maintenance will drop to just under $10,000 a year.
Thank you, Manager Crowe. Discussion on this ordinance.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Clem.
There's a lot of good things involved in this. Manager Crowe mentioned some of them. I know there's certain people have different issues with leasing and stuff, but in this rollover, it appears that we will be able to do okay in the number of years that we keep each vehicle. But I think I want to emphasize the major thing is the fact that the maintenance of these vehicles will all be done by the people here in the city of Freeport, whether it be Bacher, whether it be Fairway Ford, whether it be Jiffy Lube, whether it be whoever. All of these people will be able to take advantage of this as the people that are using these vehicles. There's a set contract set up to where they go to, but please remember the business for this and the maintenance will be spread out throughout Freeport. So it will be beneficial to many people in the area.
Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussion on this, and to me, it's a no-lose situation. You know, in the money savings, in the maintenance, in the newer vehicles, the fuel saving, and everything else. So I would like to make a motion that we approve.
Second.
We have a motion to move this ordinance forward by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Busker. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker?
is there any time-sensitive issues on this?
As soon as we get this approved, it's required to be an ordinance, we can move forward and the vehicles they can start delivering them within 6 weeks. So if we get this, if we waive the rules and go forward and get this approved, we can have the Toms and Toms new personnel have their new vehicles in about 6 weeks.
Madam Mayor,
Madam,
Alderman Busker?
motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Madam
Yeah,
Mayor.
yeah, Alderman Clem.
Normally, I wouldn't speak against this, but I think after we've gone through to get where we're at, both these people have vehicles at the moment, correct?
They do. However, I will tell you, Tom's vehicle died. When was it? 10 days ago? Yeah. And so we're nursing some of these vehicles along. And I would just like to get them. Some of our guys are driving vehicles that are bordering on unsafe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to suspend the rules made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Keister, which is non-debatable and must pass by a 2/3 majority. So, Madam Clerk, would you please take the motion, or take the roll on the suspension of the rules only?
Clem,
No.
McLanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Smith,
No.
Busker,
Aye.
Brashaw,
Aye.
Keister,
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
6-2, which does cover the 2/3 majority.
Okay, so then that puts us as the final passage of ordinance 2017-71. Is there any further discussion on this?
Mayor, or I'll defer to Alderman Keister first.
Alderman Keister.
I just kind of want to express my opinion on Alderman Clem's thought on it. The thing is, a lot of these vehicles are getting bad, and the quicker we can get them replaced and get them new vehicles in there, the quicker we're going to start realizing savings on this. Because it's just going to cost us more money to keep those running until we get the new ones in here.
Mayor,
Alderman Smith.
I support the enterprise agreement. It's not that. I don't think that suspending the rules is something that we should do lightly. I think there should be a genuine and definable need to do that, and that's why I voted no for that.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Clem.
And mine is just simply as Bob says. I have nothing against the enterprise agreement. Like I spoke before on it, I think overall it's a great package. I just don't, when we make a move that considerably changes from us owning everything to start to leasing everything, I don't think we have to do it in 5 minutes. So that's the only reason.
Thank you. Alderman McLanathan, did you have something?
Thank you. Just notes, if this were the first time that this proposal were coming in front of us, I would absolutely share the same votes and same concerns. I don't want to diminish that personally. I felt a little more comfortable considering the prior meetings that, while it may not everything have been fleshed out, we had the presentation by the representative from Enterprise, as well as some further discussion in regards to that. So in that light, I felt comfortable moving on it, but the point's well taken in regards to as a general rule on suspension of the rules.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
the last thing I'd want to do is debate with my lawyer friend here. But no, I just kidding when I say this. I think, like Bob, there was plenty here beforehand. It wasn't as though there's any surprise here, there's anything else. I just felt as though it should go through the proper channels is all. There's nothing underlying any place. I think it's a great deal. It opens up some new avenues for us without a doubt. And we won't be hung up all the time in the bidding process. As we know, Enterprise buys cars pretty cheap since they do it all over the United States for a lot of different places. That was the only reason against a vote against it. So thank you.
Madam Mayor, something not about the suspension of the rules.
Yes.
Thank you. I know when we've talked about this previously, that we had the breakdown of the numbers regarding the projected savings, the program, and basically at the end of the day, as Alderman Clem, I believe, had mentioned, and Alderman Keister to an extent, newer vehicles with regular maintenance, better efficiency, at a lower projected annual cost than our current capital improvements spending for our fleet needs. Just one last thing in regards to that. When those figures and everything was taken into consideration, when you and Director Bukis and council were reviewing it, did you look at basically the accounting standards for how leases should be accounted for, and that made its way into your analysis?
It did. In fact, both Attorney Cox and Attorney Zito reviewed this, and they both made comments and changes to the lease agreement with as we went forward in this. So,
could I just add one thing?
As long as it doesn't do with the suspension of the rules.
No, it's not about the suspension of the rules. So I'll do it afterwards. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the passage of 2017-71?
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
if I could, I just wanted to bring up one thing that I think really changed or really put things into my thought as Enterprise presented this and approached the vehicle and the vehicle buying process and how they do it. One of the things that really stood out that, you know, if you buy a car and keep it 10 years, you know, that's, if you want to do that, that's fine. But, you know, after about 3 or 4 years, the technology today has changed so much, and none of the vehicles have any of the safety factors and stuff on it that are just today common on every car. So as we look at these, it'll not only be a factor of new vehicles, these things will have some of the new safety factors along with them. So thank you.
Okay, on to item number 9 is the adoption of Resolution 2017-51. Madam Clerk, could you please read this into the record?
A resolution, a governmental body accepting membership as a member of the Quad Cities Health Insurance Pool, Q-CHIP subpool, of the Q-CHIP subpool, which is a member of the Intergovernmental Personnel Benefit Cooperative.
Manager Crowe.
yes, this has been a long-going process, and for everybody's information, I did meet with NIHP, Diamond Brothers, and Horton, as well as we had 3 other companies that were given, that we sent out the information to as we went forward and looking and comparing here. And we believe from a financial standpoint, over a long term, and I view this as a long-term decision, that IPBC presents us the best method of savings. I will say it also gives us a wider range of hospitals. One of the things that was brought to to the effect is that Blue Cross Blue Shield right now is in negotiations and has notified St. Anthony's in Rockford that they may terminate their contract. So the reason is that the discussion with Blue Cross Blue Shield is that OSF, series of hospitals, had notified Blue Cross Blue Shield that they wanted to be the only provider in the state of Illinois to accept Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Blue Cross Blue Shield has come back and said no. So there is some feeling. Sean Hamilton's here, and he and I discussed it. He's back there. He's the Gallagher representative, and they contacted Blue Cross Blue Shield. The feeling is as much as with your TV contracts, sometimes your cable say, hey, there's a chance you're going to lose ABC, and because they're threatening to negotiate that, they feel that Blue's going to be back in the net. OSF will be back in the network. But talking with NIHP and Horton, the savings, long-term savings, we believe we can realize with this, and it gives us the advantage of both a fully insured plan where we have a fixed fee every month, along with a self-insured where we can design our own insurance policy and what we want to have in there, as well as getting a return from IPBC of 2 to 5% per year, and caps our exposure at $35,000 per employee. I believe this is the right way to go. Additionally, the 3 unions have all endorsed this move, strongly endorsed it, and we believe that this has led to us to ask me to move forward on health insurance. So with that, I believe the best method, best way we should go is to adopt and join the pool. They've had 2 additional members, East Beloit and Rochelle, that are voting tonight to join the pool as well.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Manager Crow, can you go over one more time, what is the projected savings?
The projected savings over the next 5 years is just under $1 million from IPPC.
Mayor?
And that's not including their estimated dividend back to us, which is $398,000, which is the return amount.
Can I have a quick follow-up?
Sure.
So over the 5-year period, we're going to be saving several $100,000 in addition to expanding opportunities or availability of doctors locally, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Alderman Keister.
Okay, thank you. And there's no doubt there's going to be savings, and this is the way to go. My main concern when we started this is, having worked for the city as long as I have, I've been through several of these changes in different companies, and Alderman Smith, you probably remember a couple of them too, where the transition was not quite as smooth as it should be, and well, let's just say that it wasn't necessarily comparing apples to apples, that some of the services were lesser than what we had originally. To my knowledge right now of reading this, I don't see that, so I'd like to make a motion that we approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve this resolution made by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Clem. Any further discussion on this resolution?
Mayor,
Alderman McClanathan.
thank you. Manager Crow, those figures that you mentioned were based on projections based on past performance over a period of years. Is that accurate?
That's correct. It's based upon the last 5-year trend, and about what they're anticipating, a 3.4% increase on average. Now, I will tell you that NIHP says they estimated that ours would be 2.5% is what they estimated. That's based upon their pool. But IPBC estimated that our overall average increase would be 2.2%. So there's still a savings. I'm using IPBC's numbers. So, and the dividend is still based on the $398,000.
Follow-up, Mayor.
Alderman McClanathan.
Without getting into all the minutia of the numbers and all of the facts of it, at the end of the day, your opinion is that making this recommended change has the highest likelihood of achieving the cost savings with a broader offer of services in a network. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay. Anything else that goes into the recommendation, or is that pretty much covered?
That pretty much covers it. I looked at it from a cost saving, and I believe the services and also the exposure in which the city is exposed, the 35,000 versus where currently it's a 60,000, well actually 90,000, but then there is our exposure right now. And the discussion was with both Horton and NIHP was that our exposure would still be 90,000 per employee with an overall cap. So it reduces our exposure. And healthcare now is becoming a management of risk is really what it is.
You have to follow up?
No,
You
go
got-
ahead.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
I know one thing, as we went along the line, we discussed this, but, and maybe the rep has to say this, or you'd find or covered either way. We run into no problem here as we end one policy and start another policy, so there's no big surprises that you were under this policy and.
No, that's so that we are, the transitioning to IPPC is they are carrying over the exact same plan we have today. And in fact, they are covering run-in on, as well as this gives us run-out, and this is an 18-month renewal as well.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the adoption of Resolution 2017-51?
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
It's adopted 8-0.
Thank you. Item number 10 is the adoption of Resolution 2017-52. And Madam Clerk, could you please read this into the record?
A resolution authorizing a redevelopment agreement regarding the property located at 12 South Galena Avenue.
Nancy, I believe this is for you.
No, it was actually,
Oh, sorry.
it says both of us. I'm going to call on Nancy with some of it as well here, but so we went forward and negotiated, worked with Aaron and Nancy myself to go forward to do the redevelopment down at 12 South Galena with the owners of Galena HFTC Galena Avenue Holdings LLC to tear the building down behind 205 Stevenson. The cost of the demolition, this will cover the cost of demolition, the asbestos abatement, as well as the survey. The LLC will cover the first $10,000, then we will reimburse over the next 5 years, beginning in FY 2019. This is going to be taking care of one of our properties that is a problem property downtown, as well as improve the overall value of the Security First building.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. Is part of the reason that we're moving forward, Manager Crow, on this particular building is because of the contribution from an interested party? Because historically, we don't see interested parties taking a financial contribution towards other buildings.
There is an interest. The LLC was able to reach an agreement with Christopher Adams on the property, and that's the reason we're moving this forward. Is they approached us about redeveloping the limited holding company because they were able to reach an agreement to take custody of that. Christopher Adams has basically abandoned that building. So we're not going to see any improvement in that building. The building's actually become an eyesore and it's collapsing, so it was a way to take care of that.
Great. So the goal would be is that we're going to transfer the title to the new owner. The new owner will put the first 10,000. We'll pay the remaining over a period of time, and then that lot will be repurposed and put back on the tax rolls.
That's correct.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman,
Just to add on a little bit, Alderman Chesney said, one of the important things about this also is, last year when we had some problems with some downtown buildings, as we did some emergency stuff too, and this is before, excuse me, before the Garvin's building. These buildings haven't gone away. There's still about 4 or 5 in the downtown area that are in real big trouble as far as structural. This is going to eliminate one of those and solve a few problems in the downtown area. So that's also an important part as we take a look at the list of buildings that are in trouble structure-wise. This removes one of them from that list.
Mayor Miller?
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you. And also to echo Alderman Clem, I too in support of having this building removed. A few business owners in that area have expressed concerns that they're afraid of it collapsing, that it was in the condemned stage of standing at this point with pieces of it falling off at times. And rather than have it become more of an issue for the city to have to deal with later and perhaps having somebody get injured or hurt, I'm full in support of getting it taken down, and even if we have to use some of our dollars to do so. I do have a follow-up.
Alderman Brashaw.
I guess this is for Community Development Director Nancy. Do we have funding available through any of our grant programs to put towards this, or does that only go to single-family homes?
Just single-family homes.
There's nothing in the brownfield or?
No, in
anything that
fact,
this
our
could apply?
brownfields just ended on the 30th.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
motion to approve.
Second.
Everybody, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Brashaw. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the adoption of Resolution 2017-52?
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Okay, item number 11 is the adoption of Resolution 2017-53. Madam Clerk, could you please read this into the record?
A resolution to establish trick-or-treating hours for Halloween, Tuesday, October 31st, 2017.
Manager Crowe.
So, talking with the staff, we have to pass the resolution to set trick-or-treating hours. The recommendation from the police chief was 5 to 7, which I endorse for trick-or-treating hours. It is a school night. I don't know if that makes much difference, but it does set up 5 to 7, and he feels safer with this, with the traffic and hours as we go forward. So our recommendation is adopt this, establishing trick-or-treating hours from 5 to 7 on Tuesday the 31st.
Mayor,
Alderman Chesney.
what was the precedent in previous years?
Chief.
It's been historically about 5 to 7. We've made some exceptions one way or another. Last year we went a little bit later, but we'd like to dial that back.
So we're getting tough on trick-or-treating?
Tough on trick-or-treating.
You set up for that.
Hey, it's true.
Mayor. Madam Mayor.
Alderman Clem.
This is something we kid around about, but you know, safety-wise in darkness really plays into this, especially with the kids with costumes on. But as we know, we really do have issues on a couple streets here in Freeport that are just madhouses, so to speak, when it comes to that time, and safety is a big factor.
Right, and absolutely, and it's safety is the number one priority on this. 5 to 7, we felt that you know, the earlier kids, that, you know, with the little guys, the parents can get them out, it's still daylight. And then a little bit older kids, it's dark, you know, by 7 o'clock. We'll still have out our contingency of auxiliary police. We'll partner with the fire department, and we'll still have the same kind of setup we've had on Stevenson and Lincoln, in between McKinley and Park Boulevard. So it should be a good time for everybody.
Mayor,
Alderman McClanathan.
thanks. Chief, these are hours you've had before, though, 5 to 7 on
Yes.
some years? Okay.
Yes.
I'd make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Alderman McClanathan, seconded by Alderman Chesney to approve Resolution 2017-53. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Resolution is adopted 8-0.
Item number 12 is land application for landscape waste for annual leaf pickup with the bids. Director Dole.
Yes. Thank you. It's that time again. On September 26th, we had bid openings for the contract to dispose of leaves, which was advertised. We did have 2 submissions for bidders. Our contractor from the past several years submitted, and we had a new submission this year, Mr. Stuart Kuhlmeyer. However, his bid was incomplete. He was not able to acquire his bonding or his permit from the IEPA, so that disqualified his bid, even though it was cheaper. So that left us with really only one option from Dickman Farms, and it's a 3-year contract for $40,000 each year, starting this year, 2017, 18, and 19, which is nice to have a 3-year contract so we don't have to renegotiate each year, and it holds the line on the price. So I would recommend that we accept the bid from Dickman Farm Service for leaf disposal.
Mayor Miller?
Alderman Brashaw.
I am in support of this, first of all, but Director Dole, would you mind detailing to the council or the listening public that is not aware of what these farmers have to go through to spread the leaves and what they have to do to get the IEPA stamp of approval?
Well, the negotiations or the interaction between the operator and the IEPA, I wasn't involved with. I know it's required, but the service that we need is an all-access, all-weather road, a dump site that will allow us to dump, 700 loads in it. They have 18 months to dispose of this year's leaves, so there can be an overlap. This particular operator, Dickman Farms, bought I think about 3 years ago, bought a new slinger, manure slinger actually is what he uses. And as we bring those in, they have to get right on them, otherwise they run out of space, and so do we. And they have, on their permit, they have to distribute so many ton of leaves per acre. In this case, I think it's 21 ton. So they load it up in their tractor and in their slinger and take it right out to the fields and till it in, just to stay up with our volume, daily volume coming out. And like I say, it can be 700 or 800 loads in about a 7 to 9 week time frame. Of course, there's always rain in between there, so it makes his job tough trying to get into the fields. But the operation now is only 1.5 miles out of town, so the turnaround is great. We've got a good relationship with them, so I look forward to getting started, which, by the way, is going to start October 10th, next Tuesday.
Mayor?
Alderman Brashaw.
I want to thank you, Director Dole, for that explanation. I do have people in the public sometimes will approach me and they say, hey, they can go dump them on my land for $40,000. And they don't realize that the person that has their land has to have this acreage available for the spreading, and that they have to get these approvals, and there's a lot more to it and a lot more involved than what the public sometimes thinks.
Well, and I didn't mention the bonding, which I'm sure most people could probably get, and the liability insurance as well. So there's a cost to doing that business, and it takes them a lot of time it takes away from their business to distribute these onto their fields. But they're grateful for them because their yields are actually quite high since we've been doing it.
Thank you.
So
Motion for approval?
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion for the approval made by Alderperson Brashaw, seconded by Alderman Ross, for a 3-year contract for $40,000 a year be awarded to Dickman Farms. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the passage of this bid approval?
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
And next on the agenda is approval to release remaining funds from the capital equipment for an additional state K-9 bids for a squad. Chief Barkalow.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. If you guys remember last council meeting, the memo that I prepared at the very end of this was one for from the Morrow Brothers Ford. It's a state bid for the police Interceptor Ford SUV. Currently, we've purchased and picked up our 3 new Fords, but that leaves us with $28,020 left. The state bid for one of the SUVs, which I plan to use for a newer K-9 squad, is $28,260. Now, just doing the math, that leaves us about $240 short. And what I plan to cover that with our city's restricted K-9 fund. There was some fundraising a few years ago that we could only be used for the K-9 program. We have roughly $4,000 in the city's fund, and also another approximately $10,000 still with the community development fund. So I would draw some money out of there to cover the $240. Then also some miscellaneous, the squad wrapping, kennel, cooling system, and other things that's specifically for the dog.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
motion to approve?
Second. Mayor?
Alderman Keister.
Just for clarification, Chief, you got the money to buy the vehicle, and then from this K-9 fund, you have sufficient funds to be able to set it up correctly the way it needs to be, because I know that could be quite costly sometimes.
That's right. Yes, that's what I plan to do with that.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Alderman Ross.
hey, Chief Barkalow, what about the K-9 himself?
Well, we'll continue to use the same K-9 and Otto and Officer Anderson. If you remember, it was about three years ago we purchased this K-9 squad, the currently one used from Moline Police Department, and at this point in time, you know, we did a lot of repairs to the unit. It's got over 100,000 miles on it. I kind of plan to mothball that temporarily. And if we can move forward with this new squad.
Okay, follow up. If you're gonna mothball the old K-9 unit, I guess our future plan was to get another K-9 animal, dog down the road, correct?
That's right.
So you probably would bring that one back into action, correct?
That's a possibility, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
one of the things the viewers may not understand about the K-9 vehicle and everything else, please keep in mind that when Chief Barkalow mentioned that this had 100,000 miles on it, keep in mind that this vehicle runs anytime Otto is in the vehicle's running with either heating or air conditioning on it to make sure that the dog doesn't overheat, any problems whatsoever, the dog isn't left for a period of time. So there's far more involved in this than just saying, okay, we're going to give you, like, we bought you this used Ford Expedition, go out and, you know, it's been used, and it needs to be in great shape for the K-9 simply because of the fact of the way the K-9 is used, what they cost, the training with their trainers and everything else. So, and the only reason I knew this was one time we were at one of the housing authority meetings, and Deputy Anderson was there, and he was showing me, and I said, well, how's Otto doing? He says, pulled out his little thing, and he says, well, he's out in the car and it's 71 degrees or whatever, but it is important. So that's one of the reasons for the value of this vehicle.
That's right. Thank you, Alderman Clem.
Mayor?
Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. So just to clarify, what we had some prior discussions where it was mentioned potentially having a second K-9 unit, and an officer with that. That's not related to this at this time. This is just for replacement of the vehicle for the single unit, and in the events that you are looking to expand it down the road, it'll involve additional funds, additional discussions, and things of that nature.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderman Keister to approve the release of the remaining funds for the K-9 squad. Any further discussion?
Okay. No, we're okay.
Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the approval?
Mayor, who made the motion?
Clem.
Oh, I had it as Clem and Keister.
Thank you. And Clem, how do you vote?
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross. Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Item number 14 is the approval of proposal for professional services, potable water study testing from Fairgram. Utility Director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got Adam Holder in the audience as well with this presentation. And what I'm bringing before the council, the body, are wells from since the city's been in providing water. They've been, the first 7 wells and the treatment plant have been from the 1880s. Currently, there's only 2 wells at the original site that are still operating out of the 7, and then there's 2 additional at other off-sites. With one of the wells that just was taken out of service recently, some of our costs and operations, we've seen a 5-fold increase in having to backwash the filters, as well as costs of electricity and chemicals to perform these backwashing of the filters, which we've increased our costs that way. There's a lot of iron and manganese, which has some water quality for the aesthetics being pushed out to our customers. The proposal that we have before you is that Fairgram has gone and written a scope of work. We will look to identify 3 properties that will be based on the hydraulic model that has been performed just recently. With that, we'll look to go out for bid to have 2 test wells done. Those will be bored to a depth of 800 to 1,000 feet. After the test wells have been bored, there will be sampling that will take over the course of a few months to look to identify the best quality water with the yield of essentially 1,500 gallons a minute. So we will be able to go and have the ability to have our production go back to where it has been, with having 2 wells out of service out of the 4 at our original plant site. We don't have our maximum average that we could yield out of there. Also in the proposal, there's going to, and the water quality testing will be having to be performed for radium and barium, iron, manganese, regulated and unregulated contaminants. With that, after the site's been identified, there look to go and be a plant built. One which will be a little bit larger than the other, just so there will be space for a laboratory, our SCADA system with the server, maintenance work area, and the administrative office. We'll look to decommission the old water plant that's been in service since the 1880s. With this, there's going to be costs associated, but the first part is to get the approval to go and do the testing. And there's currently a capital improvement fee in place. So with this, we're not looking for a rate increase. If we look to go for an IEPA loan, there's basically, due to the population, economic demographics, health of the utility, we'll be able to go and receive some type of forgiveness. Previously, it was at 30% for some of our previous loans. And now, from what I've researched, there's a $500,000 cap on this current program that ends June 30th. We're looking to go and get the paperwork in by that date. The interest rate currently is 1.75%, and with the water treatment plant being where it is, with having 2 wells out of service out of 4, that has caused us to have diminished capacity, and we're looking to go and get a different site where we don't have any industry or, it's located near a dump. Also with this is that if we move from that site, I'll be able to prioritize some of our capital project list. And the one being the number of water main crossings underneath the rail line. There's 3 leaving the water plant currently, and I'd be able to go and reduce that down to 1. Timeline with it is that if approval is given by for the city manager or the city attorney to begin negotiation, we'd look for that to take place, right now. Fairgram, they'll be looking to go and write bid specs for having the wells bored, sampled. There will be field management during the process, and then they'll review the sampling data to provide, and that would be done during November. With the being able to go and have the test wells bored and sampled, we'll look to go and have that take place during the winter and spring. So then we'll be able to I'll be able to review the sampling data in the spring along with Fairgram, and to have this all wrapped up so we could put forth our loan application by June 30th of this year. The cost for the scope of work that Fairgram has submitted is $95,000, but $17,500 of that is as a contingency placeholder if there's the need. So it's roughly $77,500, and with $17,500 in for contingencies.
Any discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Manager Crowe.
One thing that, to add on to what Tom just briefed is, so as we go forward, as we do the hydraulic model, we have tentatively 5 sites identified for possible drilling, and Fairgram's going to identify which one of those sites are the best sites to go forward, best 3 as we go forward. At that point, I'll go out working with Roxanne to negotiate, Roxanne and Steve to negotiate a easement price to allow us to do the test wells, and once we determine the test wells, then we'll bring we'll negotiate the final purchase price. Basically, we'll set it up so we have a purchase agreement on those 3 test wells, depending on what the results on. At both the easement and also the purchase, I will bring that back to council for your approval as we go forward with the price that we've negotiated.
Mayor?
Alderman Bradshaw.
Thank you. If I understand it correctly, you're doing 3 test wells in the hopes of finding 2 that, when the water is sampled, will be approved. Is that correct?
I'll turn that. I believe that's correct, isn't it, Adam?
Mr. Holden, can you go to the microphone, please, so we can hear you for the listening audience?
Yes, we're going to identify 3 potential sites, but we're only going to test 2 at this time as part of this contract. So we'll identify 3 possible ones, and then we're going to do advanced testing on the 2 we feel are the most ideal sites.
Follow up?
Alderman Bradshaw.
Thank you. I know with high hopes, we would hope that 2 of them would be suitable, but if not, because we do have some water that is not approved in Freeport, how much more would the cost be to further sample others?
Yeah, at this time, we're basically estimating about $150,000 for the actual boring and testing of each of these sites. That's why we're...
Each?
Yes, so that's why we're only going to advance testing on 2 sites at this time. We could add another one if needed, but we felt it wouldn't be in our best interest money-wise, because we know we only need 2 at this time. If we have to advance them, we'll have those discussions.
No, I'm full approval to just test the 2, and then you have the 3rd as an option, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
just one quick question to make sure I'm clear on this. We're gonna get an easement to get to the land to test the wells, but the purchase will not be done until after we test and we know that the water is sufficient and then we can use them.
That's correct. What we're going to do is when we get the easement, we'll also sign into an agreement to write a first basically approval with a pre-negotiated price with the understanding that we only purchase it if the water is good on that site.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor. Yes, Adam. When you say you're gonna do boring, how far down are you going?
Yeah, basically, as Director Kapansky had up on the screen, we're going to drill down about 800 to 1,000 feet. That's basically, we're going to follow the same guidelines of what we know works right now. Well 8 is by the Carroll tank, and then you have well 9, which is behind Lincoln Douglas School. So those are the 2 wells separate from your water treatment plant. Those are acting right now, doing very well, have the production parameters, but we just want to make sure for these new sites that we're not introducing something new that we'd have to treat or possibly mitigate.
Okay,
If that makes
thank you.
sense.
One follow-up, Mayor?
Alderman Bradshaw.
Thank you. Manager Crow, obviously this is new information for persons like myself. Maybe other people know more about this than I do, but I don't. So please forgive this question, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it seems like a lot of money. Now, in your management experience, is this normal? Is this protocol? Is this appropriately priced?
So it is. For the councils and for the listening audience, I actually was involved in the drilling of 2 wells in Monmouth as well. And actually, those were much more expensive than this. An average well will run between $1.7 and $2.7 million once you get all the down. We went, the 2 wells I was previously involved in, we went a half mile down, which is much larger bore, much larger testing as we go in, and those are much more expensive. Those are $2.7 million a piece. So the 1.7, then we'll also have to be building additional treatment facilities. We've been looking at it depending on what the test for the chemicals are, and that's one of the sites we're looking at will allow us to really build those testing sites, build those operating sites.
Thank you for that explanation.
Mayor?
Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. From what I recall of prior discussions, we had the 4 wells over there, and 2 of the 4 got shut down based on some results. Currently unregulated, but very likely in the near future to be regulated contaminants, and so we've shut them down, and we're looking for the replacements. Is that correct so far?
That's correct.
Okay. And so this phase here is really just, when we're talking about the cost here, is really just kind of the beginning preliminary costs for the significantly larger project down the road, correct?
Correct.
When we're talking about these wells and getting some of the pipes away from the railroad tracks, you talked about plants and treatment plants down the road. Is there, I seem to recall some discussion in regards to the functionality of some of these wells that eliminates or reduces their reliance on an actual treatment plant, whereas they can cover a lot of the functions at the well, if you will. Is that correct?
That's correct. Both Tom Kapansky and Tom Glendenning went up to Minnesota and looked at the sites. Tonka produces, there are a couple different, our issue is radium in the water at that depth and how much we've got to treat for. So one of the things as we go forward is looking at smaller units, and he actually saw some very interesting units which will give us some capability to treat the water rather than developing a large single treatment facility that we would have to pipe water back. This will allow us to treat the water and provide both water for the high pressure loop as well as a low pressure loop from the wells we're at. And it's a much smaller footprint, plus it gives us redundancy within the system.
Mayor, follow-up?
Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you for that explanation. And when we're talking about these broader costs, you're talking about the IEPA loan and also talking about, obviously not, further increase based on this project for the rates. We did have substantial increases that are being phased in for capital improvement. One of the parts of the multi-decade capital improvement projects was that plant, and then also taking out some of the pipes from the railroad. I think they said there were 7 citywide. So in light of that, is the main reason we're talking about IEPA loan just to reap the benefits of the loan forgiveness? However, we'll still plan on using the capital improvement increases that have already been implemented to pay for our obligations annually?
Well, this project, because the total project would be in the realm of $5.5 to $7 million, and we've got to pay that as we're going along here. The money we're setting aside is enough to cover what we're going to be initially doing with the drawings as well as the test wells, but not for the overall building and drilling of the wells, as well as building the new treatment facilities. What's nice about the IEPA loan is that, and Randy and I, our financial director and I went to the briefing on IEPA loans at IML, is that it's 1.7%, and it's with a 20-year loan with a 30% forgiveness. So so there is that, where if we had to go out and bond for it, we would be paying in 3 points in that realm, to 3.5 to 3.75%. So there's more cost to the city. So we're going to have to pay for this up front. We won't have that capital money in our funding. This will allow us to go out and finance it at a much lower rate, faster payback, and a higher forgiveness.
Given that the pricing of these exceeds a few years' worth of the capital improvement projects and we did nothing else alone, how is this going to interact with our ability on some of the other factors, such as replacing a mile or 2 mile of the piping as we go, and all the other projects that were laid out? Are we having to delay some of those? Are we able to do those at the same time?
It's set up to be done at the same time. That's in the capital improvement program as we go forward. What Adam and I talked about, and Tom Glendenning, the first year when we start into the well, we're only going to probably look at 2 mile replacement, and then we'll go back into our much greater. But one of the things that was brought up to us when we went to the IEPA briefs is some of these communities, what they're doing is they're going in and getting this set up for IEPA loans for water line replacement. So you're allowed to have multiple IEPA loans. So it's one of the things we can do. If we want to get more aggressive in replacing them, what we do is look at what our income is coming in from our rate increases and for the capital improvement funds, and then establish what the amount of money that we can need to borrow to make that we can afford to borrow. Let me put it that way: afford to borrow, based upon it with a 20-year payback, and then we can work more quickly through the replacement of these lines. That's one of the options. And they said, what we do is we have 5 years to take our money back, take our money from IEPA, and that's what some of the communities are doing, is they'll do $1 million worth of projects each year, because then they can afford to pay that back over many years.
Mayor.
Alderman Smith.
So, Manager Kroll, what is the anticipated timeline for the completion of all of this work related to sinking new wells and building the new plant?
3 years. And I would say that's pretty standard. The big holdup I've always found is the return from, it'll take 6 to 8 months for IEPA to give us the permission to tie the wells into the water line. They have the same requirements for the well coming out of the water, untreated, as they do treated, hooking into the system.
Mayor?
Alderman Ross.
This may sound a little far-fetched, but still I'm going to ask it. Out of the 2 sites you're going to look at, is there anything that could be contaminating that area, that could grow to contaminate the area, like a gas station or something like that?
That'll be part of our evaluation process. You know, we kind of have an eyeball test of where we think some possible sites are, but that's part of our process. We're going to look at the hydraulic model and look at where it tells us theoretically for need in the community is based on fire flow and other dynamics, but absolutely we're going to have to make sure we keep an eye on, you know, what are the environmental concerns or issues regarding each of these sites.
And Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, we have to do an initial, before we're even allowed to put a bit in it, there's a phase 1 screening through IEPA, which requires us to identify if there are any
Contaminated soil.
Right.
possibility of contaminated soil.
Mayor?
Alderman Keister and then Alderman Smith.
Thank you. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I just curious with the wells we have that are contaminated now, once we get into the process of this, is that something like the landfill that we're going to be paying for and saddled with for a while to monitor, or at some point they can be capped and walked away from and we don't have to worry about it?
Well, I'll jump in ahead of Director Kapansky, but right now we don't have any contaminated wells. The two that we had some unregulated contaminants that were tested by US EPA, those have been completely shut down.
Okay.
So we have 4 wells in operation right now, and they all are producing good, high quality water. We're not in any violations or any issues. Basically, the oldest wells, if this all goes according to plan, and 3 years from now we have 2 new sites with treatment on site, we'll be looking at basically mothballing the water treatment plant, and we would abandon those wells officially. But it is not the same as, it's a very good question, but we don't have the type of issues associated with like landfill long-term costs.
All right.
Those will
So
be
no
just,
long-term
they'll just be
costs
capped.
once they're capped, they're capped.
Yeah, that is correct.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Actually, Alderman Smith.
Oh, excuse me. Go ahead. Alderman Smith.
So
you
apart
were
from
there
their,
first.
I'm sorry. So apart from their proximity to, or I should say, apart from the potential for a hazardous material spill, what is the specific hazard to having a well siting near a rail yard or a rail line?
I think the issue we've had with the water treatment plant is that we've had a break underneath the line, under the rail line, so it compromises the ability, if there's a break underneath a rail line, is very expensive, costly to repair, and it jeopardizes that supply getting into the system. So we just would like to eliminate that potential problem liability. I believe the former city engineer and his plans, that was one of the first projects was to replace and upgrade that line under the rail, which was about $1 million. So that would not be needed under this scenario.
One of the things is, and I'll add on to, is the water plant itself is at the end of its usable life. So what we're trying to do is, as we're going forward and looking at treatment, we're trying to look at the best and cheapest way to go, and the actual cheapest way to go, rather than building a whole new water plant on the current site, is drill 2 wells and put smaller treatments with them, and we're actually saving about $2.5 million if we do that. The other issue is currently with the high pressure zone and the low pressure zone, we're having to pump water and overcome the pressure in the line. So one of the things we're looking at is placing the wells in one of the treatment facilities closer to the tower, so we're not having to really, what's that?
Fight the current.
Fight the current, that's correct.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
If I can maybe kind of sum a little bit of this up. As we went around and we talked about water and sewer and the needs over the past years, as that process was going on, all the wells were working, everything was fine. There was no indication that there was any problems. As soon as we got through that vote and committed ourselves to the replacement of a bunch of piping and stuff over the next years, it was found that both of these wells came back with some bad reports on them. They were instantly shut down. But also, please keep in mind, over the last 10 years, EPA has done nothing but make everything more restrictive as far as wells goes, the quality of water and all of that kind of stuff. So never was anybody in danger on this or anything else. But also what it sounds like is we're going to take and meld some of those funds that we're in the capital improvement project for that, and do our best to produce 2 new wells and a better water facility in the future, correct? Okay. Because in one respect, you look at it and say, the wells were not part of the first phase of this whole project, okay? But the way it looks like and sounds like, some of the monies of that project can be melded together, put together to make this work and be successful for the taxpayers. Is that correct? That's correct. Thank you.
Mayor?
Alderman Bradshaw.
Thank you, Mayor Miller. When I'm looking at our agenda tonight, we have 2 items here. Number 14 is what we are currently on, which is the approval of proposal for professional services. And then afterwards, we're going to actually go into the authorization to negotiate the purchase of land. But I would like to make a motion for the approval of proposal for professional services for the potable well study testing from Fairgram.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Alderperson Bradshaw, seconded by Alderman Clem for the approval of the professional services. Is there any further discussion on this agenda item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the passage of this approval?
Clem.
Aye.
McLanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Okay, item number 15 is the authorization to negotiate the purchase of land for new well sites. Manager Crowe.
As we discussed, this will give me, once that Fairgram has gone through and identified the sites, it'll give me authorization to go forward, working with the city attorneys to negotiate first an easement to drill, and then a second, as we also negotiate the easement to drill. And that's actually a larger easement than the actual purchase property because of requirements for laydown of the drilling equipment, as well as everything that's involved with that. Discussion with Adam is we're going to have to probably have a box that's 2/3 as large as what we need for the actual well site. For the laydown of this. So that's what the easement's for. It'll be a 2-year easement as we go forward, and then we'll also negotiate the purchase of the property within it to actually put the wells and put the treatment facilities in there after that. And that'll be, we're going to identify, I need to identify those sites. We have 5 sites right now we're going to look at, 2 of which the city actually owns. And so as we go forward.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Motion to authorize the negotiation of the purchase of land for new wells.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Chesney, seconded by Alderman Busker for the authorization of the negotiation. Any further discussion?
Mayor,
Alderman Keister.
I just wanted to add that, it just makes sense to continue on with this because we just approved going for the wells. If we don't approve this, well, we just wasted our time on the last one, so.
Mayor?
Alderman McLanathan.
Thank you. So the course of action is as you proposed, and then bring back the proposed settlement agreements and any other additional paperwork is needed to council for approval?
That's correct. Sorry, turn the mic on. That's correct.
All right.
Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the authorization of the negotiation?
Clem.
Aye.
McLanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you. On to the reports of department heads. Finance.
Thank you, Your Honor. Right now, I'm working with some collection agencies to see if we can't reduce our accounts receivable. And I'm talking to some vendors right now as well for new software for our finances and payroll as well as utilities. Thank you.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you, Director. Several months ago, there was a suggestion that we move forward with a particular piece of finance software. Is that going to be your recommendation, or are we going to go in a different direction?
I'm not aware of it.
It was Civic. You and I have talked about
Civic. I've had experience with Civic, and it wasn't good.
I think that answers your question.
Okay.
Mayor?
Okay.
Thank you. Generally, are we where we need to be for getting everything back on the audit in time pursuant to our obligations?
Yes, they're finishing it up right now. Yeah, they're basically finishing it up right now.
Sounds good, thank you.
Economic and Community Development.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to add to Randy's report. He's being coy, but actually this year with the auditors, they only had, I think, 7 questions for us, and that's quite a bit less than what we've had in years past. So we're looking good, so yay. In terms of community development, we're working really hard, assessing all those properties, and I am confident to say that we expect to reach that 80 demo goal by the end of the year. So we'll keep you posted. We have quite a few in the hopper right now, and some part of the process. And then I also want to mention that the wall at 21 West Stevenson, the wall repair, is nearly complete, which is ahead of schedule. And if you get a chance, drive by. Looking pretty good.
Thank you, Nancy. Any
Thanks.
questions for Economic Development? Public Works.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you, Director Dole. So I forwarded over an email to you through Manager Crow. I'd like to read it to you.
Okay.
This was from Dick and Trudy Alderman. I've never met them before, but they seem to have taken a liking to me and and I'm happy to respond to their inquiries, and here's what she said. She said, Andrew, thank you very much for helping with the hole in my street and passing along your email to the city manager and director. The hole was filled the next day, and it's nice sleeping without hearing the cars falling into the hole. Thank you and the city manager for your prompt help. So thank you.
Well, that's great, thank you. I didn't expect that, but that's great.
Yeah, none of us did.
What street was it? Don't give me an address.
I'd have to look through the signs. I don't have it.
That's good, thank you. Any other questions? I did turn a report into the manager, and if you read it, there might be some questions, but the only thing I might want to say is the progress on the wall out here for the handicap rail, and we actually got grass growing. The guys are doing a real good job. We're hoping to get done in the next couple of days on the wall, and the railings ordered. It should be here, I would hope, in the next couple of weeks.
Thank
And
you.
I already mentioned leaf pickup, so, yeah.
Nice job, Director Dole.
Mayor?
Alderman Ross.
Yes, Director Dole, the lady in the the lady in the arcade also thanks you very much.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she's more than happy.
Good, yeah, she came out a couple times.
On,
Yes.
on LaSalle?
Huh?
On
Yes,
LaSalle?
LaSalle. and
Yes, thank you.
Fort- yes. She is,
Thrilled, yeah.
yes.
Well,
It took 10 years. off
She
the
needed
ground.
help, and that, we're glad to do it.
Yep, she was, take my word on it.
Good.
Mayor.
Alderman Smith.
Director Dole, as I drive around town, it seems like there are a lot of dead trees in the right-of-way between the curb and the sidewalk. Can you talk a little bit about what criteria you use to select out which ones you're going to bring down, and what kind of a schedule that's established by forestry for doing that?
Sure. We've had for a long time an ongoing, continually growing list of tree removal. Unfortunately, our forestry division doesn't just do tree removal. If they had a little bit more time or a lot more time dedicated to that, I think we could reduce the numbers. But whenever we get a call, or if the foreman, these guys drive down, they look at trees, that's what they do. So they do a full inspection in the case of a call-in. They'll do an inspection, and we do a priority 1, 2, or 3. And if it's an immediate danger, split tree, or whatever the case might be, hollowed out, then we go right after it and do it. If it looks like just some dead wood, it would make it look nicer. That usually gets kicked back to a priority 3.
How do you make dead wood look nicer?
Well, you dead wood the tree, take the dead stuff out to leave the live growing tree there. Just clean it and raise it. A lot of trees have Commonwealth Edison lines in them. We can't
deal with those without dealing with Commonwealth Edison. Now with the ash trees, there's, you know, 2 types of ash trees, dead or dying, so we've got to try to keep ahead of those. But like I said, our forestry division, unfortunately, they're not every day taking down trees. And it would be nice if they were. They just get redirected quite often. Matter of fact, with leaf season coming up, their team is a leaf crew. So they'll be down not doing tree removal for 7 or 8 weeks. And that does not help when you have 100+ trees on a list to take down. Then it gets into winter. We do tree removal in the winter, though, just so you're aware. So that's kind of how it works. And if it, you know, if we get a call and say, hey, this tree looks like it's worse, we'll go out and re-inspect, and it may change the priority of the tree where we'll attack it sooner.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor.
Alderman Keister?
Yeah, in light of what you just said, and I agree with you, there is a lot of them, but I will say that I have to compliment your crew on the fact that on several occasions where I've had to report trees that were becoming dangerous, within, I think, 3 days maximum, your crews got out there and immediately mitigated the problem. And so I guess my point is, if you have a tree in your ward and it's becoming a problem, get a hold of Director Dole, and they will take care of it.
That's right.
Okay, we'll move on to fire. Chief Miller.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. 2 information items this evening. This past week, fire department's been busy responding to structure fires. Last week, we responded to a garage fire on the 1200 block of Oak Street. And once we were on the scene, we recognized we had 2 garages going at the same time, which also involved 3 vehicles. So we took care of those incidents. It appears that right now the cause was contributed to the neighbor's fire pit. So we've addressed those issues. One garage was a total loss. The other one can be saved with a little work. 2 cars were totaled and a pickup truck sustained damage. The second item for this evening is a house structure fire we responded to just before 4 o'clock this morning. First, crews arrived on the scene, found the rear of the house completely involved in fire. We're very fortunate that the residents who lived there, a woman and small children, were out of town for the evening. So there was no injuries, no loss of life, and unfortunately the house, in my opinion, is a total loss. That's all for this evening.
Thank you. We'll move on to the police department.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to take this opportunity just to announce that we're entering our testing phase. Very happy to say that right now applications can be picked up at the PD. They can be downloaded off of the city website. We will be taking those applications till October 31st. We are, in the meantime, you know, kind of making you know, a media blast with this, but November 11th is when our testing date will begin. So we're hopefully we'll combine the list and get some good applicants for that. Yeah, that's right. That's right. There's a banquet coming up this week, a Special Olympics banquet. Yes, I'll be attending that. Yes, thanks, Tom. Any questions for me or Tom? You know.
Not at this time.
Okay, Water and Sewer, Director Kopansky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let's see, one item that we've been working on in conjunction with Director Dole and his staff is hot patching some of the areas that we've disturbed for water main breaks or sewer breaks. So we've got that taken care of, looking to go and get that finished before the coming season is upon us in December. And just going through the acclimation, understanding the financials with Director Bucas, and getting myself on board and taking in-depth inspections and tours with the staff to understand the needs of the facilities and of the staff.
Questions for Water and Sewer? Attorney Sosnowski.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make a brief comment tonight. We have in the back a new attorney with Cisnowski Zito. Just wanted to introduce her to everyone. Her name is Christine Gibbons. Christine is a 12-year veteran prosecutor from the Winnebago County State's Attorney's Office. Handled everything from traffic cases all the way up to major felony crimes. And we're real excited to have her join us at the firm. She will be attending some municipal meetings with myself and Aaron to get acclimated to the things that are going on in the community. So just wanted to introduce everyone to her and let you know who she was.
Mayor?
Alderman Chesney.
So Roxanne, I see you have your nameplate, so does that mean you made it? Made the cut?
I did.
So you're nameplate official?
I'm nameplate official.
Okay, next is item number 17, which is the manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple things. We handed out the schedule for the strategic planning. You should have all received emails at your Freeport account. I have forwarded a couple of them to your personal accounts too from Eric. There is a schedule in there. He would like to do one-on-ones with you Thursday, Friday, or next Tuesday. So please sign up for those. Right now, the strategic planning is set up to start at 1 o'clock at Famous Fossil in their conference room. It's off-site. We will have dinner there that evening, and then the next day it'll start back up at 9 o'clock in the morning. There will be a continental breakfast followed by, and we'll also have lunch. So I know that some people are sacrificing the football games that they had scheduled. I shared that with the mayor. A couple things that are coming up on the cow, which you'll be, we have been working hard, the staff's been working hard at the new employee handbook, as well as Roxanne's been reviewed it, so we're going to bring that forward to the council for the first look at the cow. We will also be getting the proposals for the new property and liability insurance coming forward, as well as workman's comps. Todd Allen contacted me. His last official day is in Moline is on the 13th. He will be moving to the community at that point. His wife and son, I believe, are already in school here, or they're already in the community with his son having started at out at Freeport school. So he expects to be here the week after that. He's going to take a week to finish moving in. So he's ready to start, ready to go. So, and that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Just a couple of things for the mayor's report. Just to piggyback on with Chief Barkalow, public safety is definitely a priority for us. And so if you know someone that would like to make a difference in this community through a career in law enforcement, please take advantage of this application process. And also, we received notice that the Freeport Area Church Cooperative is now open as the homeless shelter, as the temperatures at night are getting colder. So they will be open every evening from 6 p.m. until 8 a.m. at 514 South Chicago. And lastly, certainly not least, absolutely heartbreaking to hear about the tragedy in the Las Vegas. And I just pray that God would provide comfort and relief to all those that are suffering, and feel that it would be appropriate if we just all take a moment of silence in remembrance of the victims and their families. So if you'd please join me with that. Thank you. New council business, Alderman Clem.
Thank you for the heads up on signing up for the meetings for the strategic planning. I just did it. Nothing at this time. Just appreciate all the work that everybody's doing besides behind the scenes with the city and the projects that are going on. So.
Thank you. Alderman McClanathan.
Nothing further tonight.
Alderman Ross.
Yeah, well, just one thing for sure. Coming up this the 12th of October at 6 p.m. at the Boys and Girls Club. There will be a Third Ward Town Hall meeting. Myself confirmed everything with Manager Crow today. And we will have flyers coming out. It'll be on Facebook. Free Progenitor Standard, hopefully today in the port to get everybody informed, and hopefully residents in the Third Ward and over the city can come out and express your concerns and see what we have and what we're going to have in plan for the Third Ward, upcoming Third Ward this year. That's it.
Thank you. Alderman Smith.
No announcements.
Thank you. Alderman Busker.
Nothing this evening.
Alderman Brashaw.
Nothing this evening.
Alderman Keister.
Believe it or not, nothing this evening, Mayor.
Wow. Alderman Chesney.
Nothing tonight, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, that concludes the new business, and next is public comments. Tommy?
Bret Hart, you got a minute? Can you mention about the banquet at Wednesday at 6 to 8 at Special Olympics Inbury Church? And well, I'll tell you, go Cubs. I hope they win all the way. So good thing Todd Bogle's going to the banquet. Joey Miller can't come, right? Joey Miller, you going to that banquet?
Let me check my schedule, Tommy. If I can, I will.
It's going to be at the Inbury Church, and they want to. I talked to Tanya Temple, and she wants a guest speaker to speak about the banquet.
Well, I wonder if Chief Barklow has time to do that.
Yeah, I know he's going to pass the awards out.
Good job. Let me check my schedule, Tommy.
And Walco, you got the update about the old Eagle store down there by that Freeport?
We are working on the development, and it'll probably be torn down sometime in the next year, and then see some other development out there.
So, and I want to know about that gas station, the Casey's. Want to know what, are they going to start building it this week? Pretty soon. I want to tell Todd Bargle he did a good job as police chief in Freeport, and we want to keep him.
Yes, we do. Is there any other public comments?
My name is Mary Blake. I live at 848 West Stevenson, and I'm here to issue a challenge to each alder person. Go take a hike, literally. I challenge you to spend 1 hour each week walking in a different area of your ward. If you do it on evenings and weekends, you can meet your constituents, and they can get a chance to meet you. You'll learn the condition of your ward much better on foot than driving through in a car. You'll see the litter, the unmown lawns, the broken or missing sidewalks. So go take a hike. I challenge you.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate that. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to item number 21, which is executive session. Madam Clerk, could you please read that into the record?
Pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. Pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C2, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees.
Okay, do we have a motion to go into to close the regular session and move into executive?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll to go into the executive session?
Clem.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Keister.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
8-0. Yes, ma'am.